Hello, it's Brianna Ebmeyer, Managing Director at CSLDallas, a Center for Spiritual Living. And I am super delighted today to be here with Chris Gallant, who is one of our community members, and also with Tina Barber, who is representing the Trevor Project. And we are all three here today because we have something very, very important we would like to share with our community. Chris.
Hi, I'm Chris Gallant, and I am a co-chair for the Community Service Steering Committee of CSLDallas. And CSLDallas is a dynamic 24/7 spiritual community that is dedicated to being radically inclusive, spiritually progressive, and we work to transform lives. So our community selects our nonprofit partners, 4 of them every year. And these are groups that we want to support and help them do their thing and carry out their mission. And so each of our 4 partners receives a donation from CSLDallas, which is equal to 10% of the donations for a quarter. So today I'm thrilled to be with Tina Barber from the Trevor Project. She is our 2022 second quarter nonprofit partner. Tina, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thank you so much, Chris, and thank you, Brianna, for having me. My name is Tina Barber, and I use she and her pronouns. At Trevor, we always like to share our pronouns when we introduce ourselves to, again, add space for folks who are exploring, their gender identities, to kind of make sure that we are aligning with how people see themselves. So I serve as the Director of Community Philanthropy here at the Trevor Project. And in that role, I am responsible for supporting our missional work by raising money to make sure that our crisis services and mental health services are available to every LGBTQ young person who might need us 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days out of the year. So I get the distinct pleasure of being able to talk to folks like you who are powering our mission by supporting our work through contributions and fundraising. So thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
I would like to mention that thank you for that. And so each nonprofit partner is nominated by a member of the community and then voted on. And Dana Robertson is the member who nominated Trevor Project, and we wanted her to be here today, but she was unable to do that. But she feels very strongly about the mission that the Trevor Project has, and she says in light of specifically the climate that's out there today. And so
thank you, Dana. We love you.
On behalf of the community of CSLDallas, I'm delighted to announce our donation of $4,505.96 to the Trevor Project.
Yay!
And thank you to all of our pledgers, to CSLDallas, and to all of those who have donated in any way, shape, or form to CSLDallas, because that is indeed where this donation comes from. It's from those individual donations in support of our community.
So Tina, would you like to explain how the funds will be used at the Trevor Project to further your mission?
Sure, I'd love to be able to do that. So I mentioned this in my intro. Part of my role is to raise funds in support of our crisis service and mental health service work. But specifically, the Trevor Project was created really to meet the need that we identified among LGBTQ young people for immediate suicide prevention and crisis intervention work. So the Trevor Project is the world's largest crisis services and mental health provider for LGBTQ young people. So we do that by offering direct crisis service and suicide prevention services through a hotline and text and chat service that's available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days out of the year, where we connect young people directly to a crisis counselor or trained volunteer who can help them navigate whatever sort of issue they're in the middle of. It can be anything from, a real concern about suicide or, a mental health challenge. They're feeling anxious about going back to school or struggling with their gender identity in an unsupportive home. It's really anything that a young person doesn't have a safe adult to talk about. We try to be that place for them. So this donation is going to go to powering the expansion of that work. I think you said it really thoughtfully, Brianna, and also you, Chris, that this is a really important moment for queer young people to see themselves affirmed and loved in a world that can feel really combative to who they are and how they exist. And so we do a lot of other work besides just the crisis services and mental health work. We also do educational advocacy work around the issues that we know LGBTQ young people are facing, and we help train adults to create safe, affirming, and welcoming spaces for young people. So we support educators, coaches, volunteers who are youth facing around becoming more LGBTQ competent so that they can really be seen as touch points for young people who might be navigating a crisis and need someone to talk to because they might not have someone at home. In addition to that, we have our own safe social networking space for young people called Trevor Space, where young people can meet folks who are like them. That's moderated by adults who are trained and able to sort of make sure that that community is safe and secure for young people to explore their identities, get peer support from other young people across the country and even across the world in some places who are experiencing similar things to them. We know that the internet is a complicated place for young people, especially queer young people. So we want to make sure that we're creating destinations for them to be affirmed and seen and loved for exactly who they are, because we know that the way to de-escalate a young person's risk of suicide is for an adult to show up and say, I see you, I love you, and you're like made exactly the way you're supposed to be. Statistically, our research tells us that we can reduce the risk of suicide by 40% by just one adult showing up in a young person's life. So this donation powers all of that work. But more than that, I think it also affirms, CSL Dallas's commitment to like being those kind of adults in the lives of young people. And that is just such a wonderful thing to be able to accept that donation, and also to know that in a place like Dallas where young people really want, adults to see them and love them, that there's this community of folks who will radically and unconditionally support them. Those are the exact kind of partners at Trevor that we love to be able to be with.
I noticed you keep saying adults, so it's really important to these people to have adults that are affirming them.
Yeah. I mean, we work really closely with young people through our national survey, which is a huge project that we take on every year, where we ask a lot of questions of queer young people about, what they're facing, what their challenges are, what their home lives are like, and it's all really confidential, but we aggregate that information to sort of better understand like the climate and the landscape that young people are facing around their mental health. And over the years, that research has borne out to tell us that like one of the top 5 factors in a young person's decline of mental health is not being accepted for who they are. And whether that's their sexual orientation or their gender identity, or even just like their exploration of the space between those things, not being in a home environment or having an adult in their life who tells them it's okay to do that exploration and affirms them by using the name that they've chosen, the pronouns that they're exploring, affirms their sexual orientation. Like that is such a huge contributing factor to the decline in mental health among young people. And we know that from that research, from that study, that like one of the best ways to prevent suicide, which is the leading cause of death among teenagers and LGBTQ teenagers in America, is for an adult to just tell them that they see them and that they love them and that they're going to be okay. instead of being in opposition to who they are and what they're
Sure.
exploring, right?
Yeah.
Adults are so critical. I mean, loving, affirming adults are so critical. And we know that those are teachers, coaches, community volunteers, neighbors, like, you and me and folks who are in their spiritual communities, because sometimes their parents or their guardians or their caregivers aren't or can't be those people.
Honestly, I had to learn that lesson myself. I have a daughter who had mental illness in high school, and at first I just didn't even know what to do or how to act, and I was upset because I didn't know what to do and I didn't know how to help, and so I went to counseling myself to learn how I could best support her and what she needed. So I'm so glad I did that, and I'm so glad that there are many parents and adults out there who do support our teens, and we just hope and affirm that more and more adults will become more understanding and loving.
Chris,
Yeah.
this is such an interesting point you bring up, and especially in light of what Tina was explaining, that you had this challenge with your daughter, and yet you didn't know. You didn't know where to go or the resources available to you, etc. And what I'm so impressed of the many things that Tina is explaining is just the sheer breadth and quality of the resources that the Trevor Project is developing in this particular area to support in so many, like the young person, but also the adults, the educators, etc. And so, and of course, this is one of the reasons that we are so on fire about sharing information about all of our nonprofit partners, and especially this one, is so that more people are aware that this resource exists. And so I'm curious to know, one of our spiritual principles is compassion, which we were discussing actually before we started this recording. And the principle or the practice, excuse me, of compassion is the outpicturing of the principle that we espouse at CSLDallas and Centers for Spiritual Living, which is oneness and unity. And so when we practice compassion, we're respecting and we're honoring the true nature of everyone. And I just find it very interesting how you're talking about how that's what you're doing. You're honoring the true nature of these young people and giving them the compassionate space to explore and to know that, and then the adults in their lives to reflect that back to them. And then part of that compassion practice that we espouse is sacred service. And that is us as CSLDallas members really actively embracing compassion by serving others. So that really one of our big touchstones, our MOs is creating a world that works for everyone. And so that's clearly what the Trevor Project is doing. So in that vein of serving and in a compassionate way, how might our members be of service to the Trevor Project?
I mean, these are the best questions. So I think there's a number of ways that we can encourage folks that I like to describe as allied adults, right? So these are adults who are trying to show up for young people in a myriad of different ways. And obviously, giving to Trevor is a huge way to do that. And we're so grateful for the membership who has done that. But there's a lot of other ways that folks can activate beyond the gift, especially now, in support of Trevor's vision for a world where every young people sees a bright future for themselves and is loved and affirmed for exactly who they are, which, I mean, the synergy here is amazing. And so one of the ways that folks can do that is they can become a crisis services volunteer. It's a pretty substantial commitment, and you're provided a rigorous amount of training around sort of crisis service work and de-escalation, so that you can actually be on the lines answering calls with young people. If that's something that you feel called and connected to, we're always looking for folks to hold space for empathy and compassion on the lines, because there's 1.8 million LGBTQ young people in America on any given day who are seriously considering ending their lives. We serve nearly 300,000. We served nearly 300,000 of them last year. So you can see there's a big gap between 300,000 and 1.8 million, right? So the money that we raise helps us scale because our goal is to be there when any one of those young people needs us, whether it's on the phone or online, that there's somebody there to answer that call. Because we believe that every one of those lives has value, and it's what makes our world a beautiful, dynamic, and meaningful place. So volunteering is a great way for folks to sort of act out that sacred service principle that you described, Brianna. If that feels like too much of a commitment, which for some people it might be, becoming an educated ally is a huge way that you can make an impact. So I'd encourage people to check out our website and read some of our resource guides. There's some really great information there about like why normalizing and socializing the sharing of pronouns and conversations with people can help a young person feel like it's okay for them to present differently than you expect them to. There's information and training resources there about how to become a safe and confidential ally to young people, how you can make your classroom safer, how you can become an ally to a trans or non-binary young person. There's a lot of really thoughtful research and documentation there that you can sort of brush up on and then sort of practice in your everyday life to show up for young people. And then the third way that I think is really important, particularly right now, is to be a visible and vocal advocate for LGBTQ young people in your community. Tell folks that you love and support trans, non-binary young people. Tell folks that the harmful things that are coming out in our country right now about them aren't true, right? And that you believe in a world that values their lives, and then act in a way that's accordance to those values. I think that advocating for our work in that way is really important, because we know that the way to influence hearts and minds is for folks to hear those messages from people they love and trust. And your community are folks that people love and trust. And so I think that's a pretty simple, I mean, it's challenging to do that work, but it's a simple sort of way to operate in your daily life that lets young people know that there's communities that don't even know them who love and support them and will fight for them when it's necessary. And also to help folks sort of better serve that sort of compassionate purpose of just like living in harmony with one another in a way that expresses how much we value every life, because every life does have value. So those are like the three things that I would say folks could do pretty practically, in their everyday life.
Sure. Thank you for laying those out, and I can see the value in every one of them, and I'm just so grateful. Just even talking to you today has increased my awareness and my compassion, and I'm so glad to have talked to you.
Powerful, powerful work that you're doing in the world. I'm just beyond impressed.
Oh,
Yes.
I'm just so thankful. Again, we're so thankful for the financial support, and we're so grateful for the space that your community is holding for the young people that we serve, and the love and compassion that you're demonstrating for them, like in the actions that you're taking by being, aligned to our missional work and supporting the amplification of our resources. One thing I forgot to mention is share our service numbers with the young people in your lives, right? I think that that's something that, like, maybe you're in an environment you can't have a supportive classroom for all kinds of reasons. Share our number. The rollout of 988 across the country makes it possible now for a young person to dial 988 and potentially get connected to a counselor that helps them. So, there's those kinds of things that just sharing our crisis service connection points to young people can tell a young person that you're an adult who sees them and wants to make sure that they're safe and loved.
Absolutely.
Just
Absolutely.
making that number available on
Right.
posters, you know.
Yeah.
Right. And we do have our own youth area. So in addition to making that available just in general here at CSL Dallas, we have our Joy Village, our Journey of Youth. And we have a teen program, and we have many families that come in and out. And so we will most definitely commit to making information about Trevor and those very important numbers available to anyone who is involved in our youth program.
We appreciate that so much.
Chris, do you want to close us out by sharing how people might learn more?
How our community can learn more.
Yeah. So if you want to learn more about the Trevor Project and more of what Tina is sharing, if you'd like to learn more about the Nonprofit Partner Program or community service opportunities, Chris is the co-director of our Community Service Steering Committee at CSL Dallas. And if you'd like to learn more about either of those, we encourage you to go to our website, csldallas.org, and there is a section called Community, and you'll see information about the Trevor Project. And we want to just remind everyone that together, everyone within our community, but together we, humanity, everyone collectively, we are here to awaken each other to our spiritual magnificence. It's been delightful, Tina. Chris, thank you so much for the good work that you're doing at CSL Dallas. Tina, thank you so much for representing the Trevor Project. This was a powerful conversation.
Thank you so much for inviting me and for willing to support our work. I hope this is the beginning of many more conversations. We are always here to be a resource to your community, and we continue to be grateful for your allyship in our vision for a world where young people see a bright and beautiful future for themselves. Thank you so much.
Thank you.